Welcome back to the show, viewers. My name is Toyosi Phillips. Hope you've been enjoying the show so far. Right now with us, or joining us from Malta, is the Times of Malta chief reporter, Micallef. He's going to be talking to us about the migration problem Africans trying to get to Europe, and most of them make stops in Malta. So we'll be talking to him about how Malta receives these migrants and what the general issue and feel is in Malta. Welcome to the show, Mark.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you for joining us. So a lot of African migrants actually pass through Malta, and some of them make Malta their home.
Yeah, I would say that most of the African migrants who end up being landed in Malta don't really want to be here. Most of them have their sights on Northern Europe. But now we've been experiencing this phenomenon for about 10 to 12 years. And some migrants have been here in Malta for that amount of time, and they've established roots. They speak Maltese, which is a hybrid language, kind of. It's got a mix of Italian and Arabic in it. So the Sudanese especially find it very, very easy, and even Somali and other Arabic-speaking African migrants find it relatively easy to learn the language, which obviously helps their integration, if you like. I would say right now, according to the last estimates, there are about 4,000 to 5,000 African migrants residing in Malta, which may not sound like much, but bear in mind that Malta has a population of 400,000.
Yes, I was going to ask about the population of Malta. So there are 400,000 Maltese people.
Yeah.
But how these immigrants, if I may call them that, how are they received by Malta?
Generally, not so good. So if you had to take a poll out there, I would hazard a guess that 80% of the Maltese population doesn't want the migrants in Malta. There's a racist element among a smaller portion of the population, but the general feeling isn't one of welcome. It started off as being very welcoming. So when we first started seeing the first boats, let's say 12 years ago, the reaction was consistently compassionate.
Right.
But that changed over time as the amount of boats and the amount of people grew. Luckily, this week, the response to the tragedy, where 800 migrants died in one single accident off our shores, triggered an almost unanimous compassionate response. It was quite heartwarming to see that people responded to this tragedy in that manner.
Yeah. So have you ever had the opportunity to speak to one of the migrants or any of the migrants?
Oh, yeah, I speak to them all the time.
How do they get on these boats?
Well, I've actually researched and investigated the smuggling networks quite a bit. So the reason is multiple. How they get on the boats is a dynamic. But if we had to talk about Libya, for instance, the coast of Libya, particularly Western Libya, you would get, for instance, a Somali who will be approached by another Somali, or a Sudanese who will be approached by another Sudanese. One of them would be the middleman for a smuggling network, usually run by Libyans or Tunisians. Then they would agree on a price. They would be taken to a halfway house. They'd probably wait there for a good weather window. And they would get placed on the boats. Increasingly, though, since the revolution in Libya, smuggling networks have got their hands on weapons. We're talking serious weapons, artillery, basically, and the treatment of migrants in the process has become increasingly violent. It never was good, but right now it's very bad. This latest boat. From this tragedy, the survivors, the 24 survivors, imagine that, 24 survivors from a boat of 830 people, roughly.
So what's the usual capacity of the boats?
It varies. Like this boat I'm talking about is a quite an unusual. It's an unusually high number. Usually we would see dinghies, homemade sort of type dinghies, who will carry about 100 people packed with 100 people. But we've seen boats with 200, 300. Very rarely this many people on one boat.
Yeah, my question is, what is the number? What is the number that they should have? Like, what's the usual capacity on the boat? How many people should be on the boats?
On these dinghies I'm talking about, no one should be on those boats. They're literally fabricated very unprofessionally, and they can hardly make a few dozen miles, let alone a journey which in high waters is a very, very tough journey, you know. And no one should be crossing from Libya to the shores of Europe in that sort of boat, even if it were a professionally built inflatable rigid hull dinghy. So the answer to that is no one should be on those boats.
Are these people even required to know how to swim? Is that a requirement before they get on the boat?
No, that's the problem. Many of them actually don't know how to swim.
Wow.
So the minute they go down, even if help isn't actually very far, many tragically end up dying because they literally don't know how to swim. So they go down before help can get close to them.
That's really sad. Can you give us an idea of what is happening politically in Libya? Why Libya is suddenly becoming a hub for migrants?
Well, all things being said, Libya has always been a hub for migrants, at least for the past 10, 15 years. The number of people leaving Libya has increased dramatically ever since the revolution. So before we used to get, say, 40,000 migrants a year. Last year we got 170,000 migrants. That's not Malta I'm talking about. I'm talking about Italy and Europe in general from the central Mediterranean route. And that the reason for that is that there's chaos in Libya right now. There's no security. Sub-Saharan Africans are being targeted. They live a very harsh life. There is not that much work, and they can expect to be abused and violently abused in many cases too.
Right. Okay. Let's talk about your article. You wrote an article recently titled "Tripoli: Bombing Our Coast Unacceptable," and that gives us insight into Libya's response towards one of the EU's measures to reduce migrant deaths at sea. Can you tell us about that proposal and Libya's response to that?
Well, the EU, one of the things the EU was contemplating, a suggestion done by Italy, was that they would target smugglers on the coast of Libya. And that phrase, targeting smugglers, what it really meant was doing airstrikes or drone strikes on the coasts of Libya to target boats. Destroy their boats before they use them to smuggle people on them. Right. There are many problems with this approach. First of all, how reliable is the intelligence going to be able to tell that the boats you're destroying are not in fact fishermen boats? How accurate is the bombing going to be to make sure that if you actually do bomb boats, you don't also kill civilians, because these smugglers operate in highly populated areas. Yeah. And that article you're referring to is actually the viewpoint of the Tripoli foreign affairs minister. Libya right now has two governments, one in Tripoli and one in Tobruk. Which is in the east of the country. Okay. The government in Tripoli is not the recognized government. So the argument of the foreign affairs minister, Mohammed El Garyani, is that, look, you guys haven't been talking to us. When I say you guys, I mean Europe. Europe hasn't been talking to us to resolve this problem, despite us asking Europe to partner with us in fighting trafficking and illegal immigration. And now you're contemplating bombing our shores. Well, that's unacceptable to us. You cannot do that. If you want to tackle illegal immigration, you're going to have to do it with us and with our consent. To be fair to them, yesterday they with the concrete actions they want to take, and bombing was not part of the concrete actions mentioned. It might still be on the cards, but I cannot see it happening. If it were to happen, I think it will solve nothing. Immigration is a phenomenon that's going to be with us for generations to come. Yeah. If anything, added dynamics such as climate change are going to exacerbate immigration from Africa to Europe. So what I think Europe should be doing is looking at the issue, generating information, generating the facts from the ground, understanding really this phenomenon and finding ways to manage it. Right now, we're not managing it. We have knee-jerk reactions at migrations instead of coming out with a plan to manage it. Yeah. One instance of this, for instance, one of the things they agreed on yesterday was to triple the budget of the current border patrol mission.
Yes, I was going to ask what some of the concrete actions were.
Yeah. This is one of them. Okay. So they're going to triple the budget of the border patrol agency, Triton. And they're going to include more assets. That means more ships. Okay. Countries like the UK, which were always reluctant to provide their vessels for this search and rescue mission, border patrol mission, have actually pledged some very important assets. Now, the problem with this is good news. Definitely good news. More border patrol and more ships means possibly saving more lives. The problem with this what's happening now is that this mission happens to patrol waters in Europe. Now that's not where people are drowning. People are drowning about 100 miles away from that area, you know. So what's happening is people are sending maydays, SOSs from this hotspot, if you like. And it's taking these military vessels hours, 4, 5, 6 hours to get to where they need to be. Alternatively, some merchant vessel would be passing by, and the search and rescue center would call the merchant vessel and tell them to go to the site. But these merchant vessels aren't equipped to handle a search and rescue mission of the sort. You can just imagine, you can just picture it. So you've got a dinghy with about 100 people on board, very flimsy thing, you know. Yeah. And a huge hulk of a merchant vessel sent to rescue this dinghy with about a crew of 10 to 15. They cannot manage. They cannot cope. The vessel is not adequate for a rescue mission. The crew is not enough, even if they're doing their utmost to help these people. And there's big chance of an accident, just as there was when this boat with 800 people went down. The first vessel there was a merchant vessel. This wooden boat the migrants were on rammed the vessel, and they went down. The crew was on the deck, watching this thing in horror, unable to do anything meaningful other than throw life jackets, you know, and maybe save a couple of dozen people.
Yeah. We hope they really find a solution to this, a lasting solution to this problem. But thank you very much, Mark. Thank you for joining us today.
You're welcome.
So that was Mark Micallef, the Times of Malta chief reporter. Stay tuned, viewers. We'll have more after this break.